Yeah, it's recording.
What's up, everybody? And thank you for joining us for another episode of Throat Punch Mondays. I'm joined here with my co-host Cliff, and we have a new co-host Kat, who's trying not to be a co-host, and our guest Jennifer Hobbs. So this episode is actually airing tonight at July 11th, Monday night. And so a lot has been going on. We just celebrated 4th of July weekend. It's been a big weekend. I'm exhausted. I had family in town. My in-laws were all in town. Every single day we did something different. But I'm sure you guys have your stories too. So Cliff, go ahead and take it away. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Well, we were all out in California, and that was a great time, and came back, and we all wound up sick. And then I wound up getting a middle ear infection.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wait,
that's why everything was all kind of screwed up with the podcast and everything.
That's right. So we all went to California. When did we go? I'm so busy, been traveling a lot. So that was a couple weeks ago in June, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks
Okay,
ago.
so I gave everybody COVID.
Yeah. Oh, you gave it. I've been blaming the Ultimate Sacrifice guys. I've been giving them crap on the tech because they had it too.
Yeah, well, so see what had happened was my son, he's 16 and he lives over there. So both my oldest sons live there, 21-year-old, 16-year-old. And I picked up my 16-year-old, and come to find out he was sick. And I didn't know that because he was like laying down and sleeping all the time. And I guess his brother-in-law had COVID. And then so I went out and met up with everybody, had dinner with y'all, hung out with the Ultimate Sacrifice people.
Yeah, sat right next to me at dinner.
And then I took my son, my 21-year-old, well, he turned 21 that weekend, to New York City. And I didn't feel the effects till like 3 days later. And so I was in bed in New York. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah, it and of course I got sick, and I hadn't been sick in 3 years. And
yeah,
I had COVID. At the time I didn't know I had it, but I mean the COVID I was over in 3 days. I mean, it hit me Monday flying home, and then by Wednesday about midnight I woke up hungry and ate. And by Thursday I felt fine, but then a couple of days later my left ear started bothering me, and I wind up having a really severe middle ear infection, which I guess from what they're saying is part of COVID, because the Omicron is an upper respiratory type thing. So, and the doctor put me on some really strong amoxicillin, like 875 milligrams twice a day. So that completely screwed me up and make me sick to my stomach taking it. And anyway, but yeah, I got all over that. I'm all better now. So
yeah, I lost my sense of smell and taste per usual. And I say per usual, which is terrible because this is the 4th time I've gotten it.
Well, and there was some on the team. I think Monica had a really bad sore throat.
Yeah, I've had that.
I didn't lose my voice, but it was from the middle ear infection, I guess. I don't know.
Not this time around, but in the past, getting COVID, I've had the sore throat, I've had the ear infection, I've had the fever, I've had the pneumonia, I've had the works. And each time it just gets better. I guess your body's doing what's supposed to do, fighting the disease. So this time it just felt like the flu. Have Jennifer or Kat, have you guys ever gotten it?
Jennifer, go ahead.
Not that I know of.
I have not. So I'm very thankful for that, but I'm a homebody, so I'm thankful for that too.
Well, what's weird is, when I went to go get tested for my hearing, and that was on Monday, they did the fast COVID test that came back negative, and then the PCR test is one that came back positive. But had I never had the ear infection, I would have never went and got tested.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how it affects people differently, and each time it's different. So anyway, did you guys shoot fireworks for the holidays? I know, like, there's some vets who get really triggered by fireworks, and some who are like, go for it, I don't care. How do you guys feel about that?
My husband he loves them. Like, that's what he looks forward to all year, and then tries to squeak off to go buy them without me. So I'm not putting a cap on how much he spends. And then we get together with some battle buddies and we put them off. Some of our battle buddies will wear like headphones. Like one of our battle buddies usually he leaves before the fireworks, but this year he totally adapted and overcame, and he put on
awesome.
headphones that played music. So as we had the patriotic music going and the fireworks show, he was just rocking out to some country, singing at the top of his lungs. And then, so we adapt and overcome, and we do enjoy the fireworks as long as I know they're coming.
Yep.
Right.
That's awesome. Right. Exactly. Because I get kind of startled sometimes too, but as long as I know, that's awesome, because I'm a big believer in your trauma is your own, and you can't expect everybody else to tiptoe around that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it sucks. But let people enjoy their holiday.
Right.
What about you, Kat?
I actually went to a new place this year. My boyfriend's friend had invited us. It was a cul-de-sac, a bunch of houses with a bunch of different people. So I really didn't know what to expect. I will tell you that my anxiety was off the charts before we even got there. And the gentleman had sent us to the wrong address. And I had my kids with me and my mom with me. And so we went into this lady's home. She was very welcoming because it was the whole neighborhood was there. And she was like, yeah, come on in. And she's like, oh, this isn't, so-and-so's house, but you're more than welcome. And my son had anxiety. I had anxiety. But after everything, we kind of settled down and got to the right place. And I was triggered a little bit. I think my anxiety was already high. So usually it's not like that, but this year it was a little anxious for me, but we did enjoy ourselves. My mom enjoyed herself and my kids enjoyed themselves. So, it was it's not home like I'm used to, but it was definitely enjoyable. So
that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. You guys had a good weekend. I am with Jennifer's husband. I buy all the fireworks. I'm like, every time I go out, I'm like, yes, fireworks. So we spent I bought enough to do about like 3 hours, like just sitting outside in the dark, just lighting up fireworks. And it was 3 hours because we had to do like 4 at a time at one time. That's how much like we had towards the end.
You're that neighbor.
I am that neighbor. There's a meme that I saw on Facebook. It says, apparently my neighbor spent $23,000 on fireworks.
I saw that.
I'm like, that's me. But yeah, it's been hot and humid here in Florida. And my in-laws were in town, and I took them out. We went sightseeing in St. Augustine, the oldest city in America, the oldest occupied European settlement in America is what they say. But it was a long day. They enjoyed it though, and had a great time with family. Kat. So Kat's been on Throat Punch Monday. Was it 2 times? She's been on before in the past.
I think twice.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was a while ago.
So for people who's just catching up on the show or haven't seen you before, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
So my name is Katie. I go by Kat. My veteran name is usually Kat.
Yeah.
And I am originally from Detroit. I've moved all over. I was in the Navy. I served on an aircraft carrier, 2 deployments. I did a security group. And then I met my ex-husband, and he was also active duty. So we decided we didn't want to be dual. And then we had 2 kids, and we got stationed in Norfolk. So I am and then we got divorced, and then I am still currently in the Virginia Beach area. And I want to get more into helping veterans and getting more connected and staying with the community. I've struggled with a lot of things these past few years, and I think I need to get back with that community to really help me, whether it's volunteering or doing a podcast like this, just something to really start connecting and helping. So I'm happy to be here again.
Well, thank you. And like Cliff always says, you always need things in your toolbox to help you keep going and moving forward. I think surrounding yourself with a community, with people who you're familiar with, like just having that camaraderie definitely helps 100%. Our own recovery, but other people's recovery also. So speaking of recovery, Jennifer Hobbs is our guest. She is the author of Calmed, right?
And Growth After Trauma.
After trauma. And she is an Army veteran and served in did you go to Iraq or Afghanistan?
Iraq.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was in the Army National Guard. So, you sign on thinking, just as a lot of people still think, it's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks during the summer, and it is not. And it should be called International Guard, to be honest with you.
Well, especially in like the early 2000s, you're gonna deploy,
and that's when I did deploy. So I enlisted at 17 and when I was still in high school, and then I was about a year out of high school and we got mobilized. So I got mobilized at 19 and we got deployed to right outside of Baghdad, Iraq, and actually about 1,500 meters from, my husband makes fun of me because I still use meters, 1,500 meters from Abu Ghraib. And so we were truck drivers and our main mission was to be gun security force on convoys for civilians who carried the mail. And so we would deliver mail all over Iraq during that deployment. But being like 1,500 meters from Abu Ghraib, we received like over 200 and some mortars that year. So between the roadside bombs and the mortars, it was pretty challenging. We lost 5 people and we had 29 Purple Hearts. And when I had come back, I was like writing more as a coping mechanism, and then just jumped right back into school. I don't know about you guys, but like having come back from a combat zone, I just felt 15. Well, and I was National Guard, so I don't know about coming back and just getting right back into active. I know about coming back and feeling like I'm 15 months behind on my life. So I just jumped right back into school without giving myself any time to even think about anything. And then next thing you know, I'm like 7 years into teaching and I'm doubting whether it's what I want to do. I really want to help veterans, and other than being a politician, I didn't know how to do that. So I continued with teaching, and then 12 years into teaching, I wrote my first book, Calmed, Growth After Trauma. And through that journey, I married a veteran as well that was on the deployment with me. As a matter of fact, like the story is about our deployment and a explosion that really changed the course of our lives. But 12 years later, I decided through the journey of writing that like I knew for sure it was time for me to leave teaching, and that I wanted to dedicate my life, whatever I have left, to the service of veterans and their families, and however else I could help serve to where we can best serve veterans and people that need, with mental health, with a focus on mental health. And so I did resign, and then I started my own podcast called Celebrate the Struggle, and I'm continuing to write and work on my next book. And I've had some other opportunities with like the Lone Survivor Foundation, working as I don't even know if work is the word, but like serving as a team
volunteering.
Serving as a team leader. And then I did just get the opportunity as a volunteer to lead social groups with the Veteran Spouse Network out of Texas. And I have like my first one this weekend. So I'm trying to find, the connections and conversations with people like this have been my favorite part. And making those connections, again, just solidify that I know that this is what, I know I made the right choice. Now, as I sit here and I panic and I wish, more lucrative income was coming in, then you get in your head and you're like, should you go back to teaching? Are you sure about this? And then I have to like reel it back in, and I'm like, no, crazy girl, you're fine. Like, it's fine. You're doing the right thing. And that's me. I got 3 kids. Like I said, I married my husband, and I think I got it all covered. I got a really crazy sunburn, so I typically don't, have the owl eyes, but that's okay.
So what year did you actually like transition from national or get out, or are you still in National Guard?
And the deployment was in 2004, and then I got out in 2010.
Okay. All right. That's about the time that I got out too. And then you said you taught for 7 years after that?
Well, I did kind of make that sound confusing. It was about 7 years in that I was really just starting to doubt whether that was the route for me. But no, I taught for 12. And in order to, like, I do like to be a leader and serve more and just find how best I can have an impact. And in addition to figuring out how to move on the pay scale, like, I took advantage of my veteran benefits. And so I have 2 master's degrees and 2 master's degrees in education. Would you believe that they're not doing a whole lot for me in trying to find a job to
I know,
serve
right?
veterans? Like, I look at usajobs.gov like every day, and there's so much stuff that like one thing was like education program specialist, like everything listed. I would rock that job, you guys. Nope. You got to already be working at the VA. And I'm like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's hard to get into.
I have a lot of experience with that because I am a GS employee right now. But the reason why I asked, like, how long did it take you from like you did teaching until what you finally found what your passion was, is because I want our viewers to know, especially those who are just getting out, or even if you're still active duty, it takes a while. It takes a few years for you to actually find out what your passion is. Like, you got to fail at certain things, or you got to go through certain things first before you know what you actually want to do. Like for me, I'm kind of the same thing. I worked for a while. I went to school. I have a master's degree and all that stuff, but I didn't really find my passion with working with veterans until I would say probably just before COVID, or right around when COVID started and I got with VeteranTrashTalk. But before that, I was always, volunteering within the military community, but I wasn't like actively going out there trying to meet other veterans and trying to advocate for mental health. And that's what I want our viewers to know, is that it takes a while. Right.
So to answer your question, 12 years and a head injury. Like, to be honest, it was a head injury right at the beginning of COVID, right before COVID came on. I fainted and I cracked my skull in 2 places. And through that horrible recovery, I got into a bad place where I was self-medicating. And luckily I, this many years beyond the deployment, through a lot of post-traumatic growth, that I was able to see, like, put the beer down. You need to do something about this. And so it was then that I was like, I'm going to get back to writing. And then all that just started this journey to continue on, and on my post-traumatic, actually, I would say it was really the turning point of my post-traumatic growth process. And so it was right around COVID, like you, where things really ignited.
I think a lot of things shifted during when COVID happened, because people had to find something to occupy themselves, or else you'd go crazy.
Yeah.
Good, Cliff.
Oh no, I
cut you off.
If you may ever watched, my podcast, Mental Health Warrior, I talk about a lot of things. What Jennifer just said is, when you have PTSD and when it kind of creeps into your life, I just talked about this today, was during the recording. It never happens like good times, right? It always happens during bad times, when, you're down, you're not thinking straight, always talk about it being a sniper right there. It's just ready to jump in at that moment. And you have to really be able to manage that and work your way through it. And I talk about all the time is having different ways of doing that, different tools in your toolbox, or however you want to say that. And a lot of people find it through writing. A lot of people find it through art, find it through music. I find it through working out. I enjoy working out. I work out all the time, but I don't do it. To me, that helps me mentally. And when I can't work out, it affects me negatively. And I talk about that. And so it's just important to be able to do those different things. And that was really a good point that you brought up, Jennifer, is that, I have a TBI injury and I have ADHD based on my TBI injury. I don't talk about that a whole lot. I talk about my suicide attempt more than that. But it's hard to manage before I didn't understand why I was doing things, why I was doing stuff, or why I forget things, or why I couldn't think straight, or why I couldn't do this. And when I went to the TBI clinic at Fort Belvoir a couple of years ago, and the doctor's like, well, do all the testing, they said, well, you have ADHD. And I'm like, well, first of all, what is that? And secondly, what does that mean? But once I went and figured that out, things kind of started to make sense why I was kind of always all over the place. And, I had to do things like I have to write things down, or I have to really concentrate to complete a task, right? Or I'll have 16 tasks going on and never finish one of them. So, my wife's in the Navy. She's active duty still. She just got picked up for 06.
Congrats to her.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Wow. 06. Can I get some money? No,
I know, right?
Us, lady.
No, I need it all because I got to do my trucks and Mustangs and all my.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. But so I'm here with the boys. I have an 18-year-old and a 7-year-old, and so at times it's a struggle. And so when I'm doing laundry, right, because I got to do laundry, if I don't take the laundry out of the dryer, set it on the bed, and fold it right then, it may be a couple of days before I get back to it.
Oh yeah. Weeks for me if I don't do it right away.
So I just try to always to do everything and finish it. And that was kind of the stuff that they taught me, at the Intrepid Center on how to do things. And it's weird to think about that, right? But when you have an injury, especially a brain injury, certain things you have to learn how to do differently. Right, Jennifer, you probably agree with me on that. And so sometimes it becomes very frustrating and stressful when you're trying to figure that out. But once you figure it out, then it's usually generally okay to the most point. So
yeah, you're like speaking to my life to a T. And I have to sit there and stop, when I'm all over the place. And then I'm like, okay, what's the priority right now? What needs to get done right now? Like it's a lot of checking yourself, like being present, like pausing and being present, like what was I doing? And like even things that I did prior to my TBI, like I don't know about you guys, but if I'm trying to get all these things done at the house, like if I know I need to change the laundry, like I don't know, do the dishes, grab my coffee, then I'm walking down the hall going, laundry, coffee, dishes, laundry, coffee, dishes, like just saying it in my head. And so it's definitely, and it can
turns into coffee.
Yes. And actually, so I was thinking about my TBI at the beginning of this conversation when Kat was talking about, that being kind of triggered from the fireworks. I'll tell you what triggered me more, just kind of gets me in lame headspace and kind of gets me to where you want to get down on yourself, but then you have to check it. Like, don't do that, is my TBI, like not remembering people's names, that short-term memory. So when I go to these gatherings and I know I've met that person last year and I'm like,
right,
I've met him the third time. I'm like, have we met? And they're like, yes, Jennifer. Like, I'm sorry. And then I feel bad and I know I look like a burnout and I don't want to come across like that. And you don't want to be like, sorry, I have a TBI. Like, and then that's just awkward.
I mean, I can relate to that. I literally went to, and we call them hikes. They're not hikes. They're kind of like rucks or marching around the city. And I went to one in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was on Carolina Beach. And I've met most of these people before in Jack's Beach. And what they do is they go around different cities and they meet up with other veterans to prevent each other and to prevent other veterans from, unaliving themselves. So it's not to spread awareness because everyone knows 22 a day exists. It's so that we can help each other. Well, so anyway, we go to a meet and greet and I'm Facebook friends with these people. And so they go up to me and they're like, oh, what's up, Len? I'm like, hey, what's your name? And then so they have to tell me their name. And I felt like, oh my, I felt silly. Like,
Mhm.
I see your posts every day. We interact every day. We've probably messaged each other like, hey, how's it going? And I've seen pictures. I've probably taken pictures with them before, and I don't remember their names or even their faces. Like, I heard somewhere there's something called like face blindness. And I heard Brad Pitt has that he'll meet somebody and then forget about their face and don't recognize their face. So I don't know. I just read that somewhere, but yeah, it feels silly for sure.
It's funny because when I was at the TBI clinic, that was one of the things they asked you, what are your goals? And I was with the lady, and I said, well, I just want to try to remember names better. And so we went to many classes because I travel all around. I do speaking events. I meet a lot of people, just like you, Lynn, and Jennifer. I'm sure you're the same way. And so I just always use the excuse, well, I meet a lot of people, so I can't remember everybody. So you're gonna have to please tell me your name again. Because like Jennifer said, I don't want to tell everybody, well, I have a TBI and I don't remember what the hell I did yesterday or 2 seconds ago, or if I walked through a doorway. And they always said that, right? If you walk through a doorway, people forget. Why is that? It's not that you forget, it's just that your brain has now threw everything out that you had in the other room out. And when you walk through the doorway, now it's a new room. And so now the brain's remembering things in the new room. So they did a big study on that. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
and then
you don't want to talk about. So you just try to do the best you can, and I kind of make a laugh of it and say, "Well, that's why I always have my wife around because she remembers names I don't." And I tell people straight up, I said, "I'm going to forget your name, so don't be offended if I ask you 6 times. I'm just going to forget your name."
Absolutely. So my husband, being a survivor of a roadside bomb where like the truck like landed on his face, so definitely TBI there. The other day I was putting stuff away in the pantry, and like up at the top of the pantry is like any like adult beverages, a lot of which like have been up there forever and totally need cleaned out. And they're pushed back, and then boom, right there was the carpet cleaner. And I couldn't help but laugh to myself because I'm like, you just don't know who did this. Was it me? Was it my husband? Was it my 13-year-old not paying attention? And so that's where
it's right there next to the booze.
Yes, yeah.
Like, please don't drink the carpet cleaner, okay? That's a whole nother level too. I mean, we talked about self-medicating. As veterans, when we were younger, we binge drink, right? But now we're getting older. Most of us are Zennials, Millennials, X, 30s, late 30s, 40s, and then we self-medicate. It affects us a whole lot different now. Drinking. I know that I have turned to drinking a lot, and I am actually diagnosed by the VA PTSD with alcoholism. And so they make sure, and when they prescribe me medicines, I tell them, I was like, just make sure I have that alcoholism on my VA. Don't prescribe me 20 different medications and then I drink like a whiskey sour or something and then die. You know what I mean? Right. And so like that's like a whole nother level. And I know, Kat, you could probably relate to that, right?
Oh,
I mean, you've gone through your own journey with alcohol.
No, I certainly have. But no, I just recently have been reaching out to Len and trying to tell her, I need to share my story. I need to talk to especially other veterans. I'm very similar with the PTSD with alcoholism. It runs in my family. So it kind of was a setup for failure to begin with. And so I think the self-treatment is one thing, but I think that Jennifer, you called it PTG, post-traumatic growth, I believe. That's something that I want all the veterans to focus on and try to use that as the tool in our toolbox instead of the shame and the guilt that comes along with it, because that has been my biggest hindrance. And I don't have much support in the way of family or close friends. Like I said, I'm a very introvert, very homebody.
I have to push her like, Katie, come on.
Yes, she does. But once I'm out of my shell, I'm almost like a different person. But lately I've been struggling with the drinking, and I've thought about all these other programs, and I've entered a program, and I just kind of, it's lovely and it's great, and it's a positive success that I can actually say, yes, I did that today, a meeting or a program. But I wish there was something involving veterans, specifically for veterans, because I think there is a huge difference between being a veteran with PTSD or TBI and alcoholism, or anybody who's even getting close to that tipping edge of wanting to go over the edge. So I have talked to Len about it very personally, and I want to be more open about it. And like Jennifer, you talked about knowing that you wanted to help veterans or their families, and it's just like, I'm kind of to that point where I feel like I wouldn't be helping myself if I wasn't helping others, and I have to be honest and real with every conversation. And that's why this is so important, and I'm glad that Len brought it up, because this has been on my mind for a while. So I appreciate everyone. I mean, and it's hard because if you don't have a support system, you struggle. You really, really struggle. And just talking about this with just a few people or a podcast or whatever it may be, we all have at least one thing in common, and that's being a veteran. And that's like, at least we have that baseline. When you go to meetings or you go to other programs, it's very difficult. And I don't know if anybody else has struggled with that, but it is very nice to have this outlet.
Well, Kat, I don't know if you know my story, but I'm a suicide survivor, and had my brother. I mean, I went from A and as close as you can get without completing that you can get. My brother saved my life. And so I know what that road looks like, right? And I self-medicated with alcohol, and I lied to my therapist. I did all the things that you're not supposed to do. And that's why I do what I do. And I've been doing it for quite a while before I got involved with Veterans Trash Talk. And so it's everything that you're saying, you always want to take with baby steps. Oh, yeah. And I tell people this all the time. When you start to tell your story, or you start to go down that road that led you to the place that you're at, you have to be careful, because revealing too much too soon, or not having the support structure behind it, can actually have the reverse effect on you than a positive effect. And not telling your story or anything is not, but I just always caution people, because when you go out and you talk about something so deep and personal that it had affected you at that level, right? And it's different for everybody. When you start retelling that over and over and over again, it will wear on you. It wears on me. When September, October, I do speaking events, and I limit my number of speaking events, because if I push myself too hard, it's going to start affecting me. And I know that, but it took me a while to learn that. And so it's very important. And I talk about this on my podcast, and it's great to tell your story. It feels good to go out and open up and do all that, and just know what your limit is, and know when it's okay to step back and say, okay, I just need to take a break from it.
But that
self-care, that's something I think we all struggle with too, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of the veterans that I've met, like you guys, we have this calling to give back and serve. And so we also have to check ourselves to make sure we give ourselves our self-care, whatever that may be, whether it's Netflix or exercising or reading, whatever it may be.
Podcast, talking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's good, and it's great to connect. Now, I don't know, Kat, if you ever heard of NAMI, the National Allegiance of Mental Illness. They're the oldest group that's been around. I had a lady that I knew through my speaking events, Danae, and actually going out and doing a speaking event for her next week. She's having the 5th anniversary of her NAMI group in Ohio. And I just joined an NAMI group. We meet every 2 weeks on Zoom. There's a mix of people with all kinds of different problems. And it's kind of like what we're doing on the podcast. It's free. And I tell you, and I don't always make the meetings because I'm busy, but I do enjoy dialing in and talking to people at the meetings. And they're strange people. I don't know these people personally. I've known Danae now for 2 years, and I'll meet her for the first time in person on Thursday. But NAMI, I really like that, and they're nationwide. And so you can look up and find a group if you want to join our group. If you
What
want.
does it stand for again?
It's the National, I always screw this up.
National Alliance of
Mental Illness. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Because
Yeah,
also
they've
like
been around since the 70s, I think. They've
just
been around for a while.
having that anonymity sometimes it helps you, because sometimes
Yeah.
you don't want to come out your shell all the way, you know,
Yeah.
or you don't want to face people and be like, oh my God, like I don't want people to like, you know. So if they don't know you, you don't know them. What's the harm of like actually expressing yourself and getting your thoughts out there, you know, and it's better than nothing.
And that's why I say it's very important, because, you know, I wish there was more of not strictly veterans, but veteran-based groups, because there's
outside of the VA.
Yeah.
Correct. Well,
Right.
that's exactly. But
because I have the VA. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. Well,
mhm.
I won't speak about that.
Right.
But
That's a different
Good and
podcast.
bad, good and bad.
right. No, I just think that it's if it was a closed group just for veterans, we would still be anonymous, but it would at least we would have that one thing in common to where we wouldn't have to feel scared. We would still be with brothers and sisters alike, you know. And I think that is where my urge to help is kind of leading me, like Jennifer said, you know, she said, this is what I know I want to do. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of at the early stages, so I'm glad that we're having this conversation. But it's a big problem, and I'm sure everyone here has either experienced it, it sounds like, or has known someone that's experienced it.
Well, you know, talking out loud about this right now, and for viewers who tune into the podcast, it also helps them. So it's not only helping you, but it's helping other people.
Right.
And I know it's scary at first, you know, but if you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, it gets easier. Right. So
she's still trying to convince me. You hear her, right? She's still trying.
It's in her voice. Oh, she's not going to give up.
No, she won't. I know she
ever.
won't.
No,
I know she won't.
Kat and I have known each other, I don't know, 16 years, a long time.
What?
And
yeah,
and we've done deployments together, and we've kept in touch ever since. So I love her to death.
Kat, you know, I'm in Virginia. I'm up in Manassas, Virginia, and I actually lived in the Norfolk Hampton Roads area for 9 years.
So
stationed down there.
Jennifer, you have your website, thejenniferhobbs.com, and I noticed on your website you have personal development packages. Tell us a little bit about that.
So some of the other things that I've been doing, like over the year, like in the fall, I launched my Found workshop, which stands for like just kind of a wellness process, which doesn't really, I think it applies to all of us, not just I had really wanted to, when I thought about it, brainstorming, I wanted to help. Whoa, okay, let me slow down. My mission was to try and best, help serve veterans. And through a conversation, I thought the best way to do that would be to help the family members and friends. That way we have this bigger army enlightened and ready to help more veterans than just little me can do. And so that's when I started trying to focus on, well, what would that look like? And so Found stands for first, you focus on yourself. Like you have to be ready to go. Like you got to serve yourself first before you can go help anyone else. And then O is opening up those conversations, some of which can be a little uncomfortable, just finding how best to communicate with who it is that you are trying to help, or at least make them aware that you're there. And then U is uncomfortable conversations. and is navigating needs and resources. Like, what now that I've opened up those conversations, like, what can I best do from here, help them find what they need. And then D is dedication to like development and continuing on. And so the way I see it and know how life is, we're not always at D, like the last couple of months were pretty hard for me, where I found myself back at F. And so that's life. And so that was my wellness workshop that I launched then, that I have pre-recorded and ready to on my website. But then I wanted to find other ways to do it. Well, I had done a live workshop like with a group over a couple of weeks, and then I felt like maybe people's lives adapt better to like do it on your own time. So I had pre-recorded it, and that's on my website. And so then one of the other things that on there is a personal development workshop, and then the opportunity to have like one-on-one accountability and coaching with me, which again, like I think Kat, you had said, like, I don't come as like, I'm like this awesome coach, no, we're in this together. Like I want to be accountability coach for you, because like, we're going to be accountable together, and so, and that's a couple of the things on my website. You also have the opportunity, like I'm always looking for guests on my podcast, which is Celebrate the Struggle, where I really just wanted to, at first I started with like really just focusing on veterans and wanting to have family members, which I haven't had as much luck getting as many family members on there, but really just giving the space to talk about things that might seem uncomfortable or have stigmas in society, but just giving the space to it and speaking about what we've overcome and overcame, and what we won't, like what won't define us, like how far we've come through all those struggles. And so it actually derives from, and I mentioned this in my book, like there's a Bible verse that I had read when I was again like struggling. Someone took me to a Bible study, and like James 1:2 says, like, celebrate the hard times, because it's those hard times that will bring you perseverance and make you even stronger. And I totally just put that in Jennifer Hobbs' words, but that's where it derives from, like, let's celebrate the struggle, because we overcame it and we continue to. And so I have veterans on there and family members, but I've also had other individuals, like a gal that with eating disorders, where she was awesome and spoke about the reality of that. And I've had a young lady on there named Amanda Forifino, who's also a published author, and she has cerebral palsy. And so it was amazing that I was like able to give her the questions in advance, and she programmed her answers into her Lingraphia. And then when we had our podcast, she was able to push the answers and show the world. Cool. It was, and to show the world that she's got so much to say. And like some people just look at someone with cerebral palsy, maybe if they're not very verbal, and assume that they ain't got a lot to say, when they really do. And so
their brain still works,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so
definitely you can get me on the podcast. I know Cliff will get on there. Kat will get on there.
Yeah, you have to come on mine too, Jennifer.
Yeah,
absolutely. I was over here making notes to make sure I follow up.
The podcast, the circle, make the podcast circle.
Podcast circle.
Really
I don't have a podcast yet.
Well,
your podcast is here.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but that's good, because I will tell you that, Jennifer, you come on my podcast, we would talk about things differently than what we talk about on this podcast. I'm sure when I come on your podcast, we would talk about things differently than what we talk about in the other two podcasts. And that's the great thing about podcasts, is just sorry.
Ew, COVID.
A group of people having a conversation. So
you're absolutely right. It just offers so many different perspectives and helping to share with the listeners and those watching that, like, either number one, spreading a message of hope, or number two, like, you're not alone in this. Like, Kat, when you were talking about, you wish that there was some sort of group, it's crazy that like I literally have had this conversation with a couple of my battle buddies over the last month, because when we got the people I served with in 2004, when we got back after so many years, like we ended up voting on making our group, which was just meeting kind of as a reunion. We ended up voting on making a 501c19, the state recognized group. And so we're called Veterans of Log-Based Sites. And like our mission is to like help, our mission and vision is to help our veterans and their family members. And one of the things I threw out, I'm serving as the president this year. And one of the things I threw out to the event committee was talking about like, can we have an event where like we have our own people come together on a Zoom call and just be honest with like our struggles with substance abuse. And then we just started talking about it, being concerned about like that might get a little sketchy for none of us being qualified in counseling, but I still just keep thinking about it, because it's not like we need to go on there and necessarily counsel each other. It's just having a safe place to be able to relate to one another,
to talk about it,
to be real.
Diagnosis, you're just talking.
Yeah. And I look forward, Kat, to seeing like where your drive and passion goes, because I want to know more about it, because I still really want to see a safe place like that. And I would like to share that with my battle buddies.
So your 501c, is that only in Chicago or in Illinois?
No, it's no, it's not.
When did you guys start?
I think it was like 2008. I want to say.
Oh, wow.
That's been around for a while.
I think it was. Honestly, you guys, come on now, like don't trust my memory. Well, I mean, I'd have to look up at the paperwork, but so it may not have been 2008, it may have been more like 2018, but who's counting? No, I'm just kidding.
Still a long time.
And so like right now we're working on this discussion of like whether we open it up to other veterans, because in our mind, like we're gonna dissolve, and like our mission is to help veterans, not just the veterans of the 1544th. And so it just becomes a little overwhelming thinking about that as I talk to the development committee about it, because it's a volunteer board, right? And so like as we start thinking about opening it up to any veteran, then it's us, like the core. My mind just starts spinning, like how do I work this with the dues, that I'd have. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
I think that Colin from Ultimate Sacrifice Foundation he always brings up this point that our generation is the biggest influx of veterans, right? So our country hasn't seen this many veterans at one time, like OIF, OEF veterans. And so what you're seeing now is all these veteran foundations sprouting up everywhere, different states. So as far as Florida goes, we have different veteran foundations where they take veterans to go scuba diving, to go fishing, to go hunting, to go camping, to go hiking. And they're all local based. And that's why I asked you, Jennifer, like, is it just local? But if you just take the time to just research or Google research, you'll find different veteran things that are specifically catered towards us, catered towards veterans. And there's so much out there. Every time I do an event, I get business cards. I have so many business cards. Like everyone is a business owner. Everyone is very passionate about this. You know what I mean? And it's like we're not alone. We're not the only ones out there. It's a huge population of us out there right now that are getting out, or just now getting out, or retiring from this era. So it's out there for sure. And I'm glad that you guys are here with me today to talk about all of that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Where you at in Illinois, Jennifer? My wife was in the Great Lakes for a while. She lived up around that area for a long time.
Great mistakes. No.
Yeah. I'm from like central Illinois, so kind of not too far from the capital of Springfield.
Oh, okay.
I live in Sullivan, Illinois.
She lived in Grand Lakes. Was it Grand Lakes?
So I'm guessing
I
that.
was about 30 miles outside of Chicago.
Yeah. I was just in Chicago. Look, I didn't want to pee in your guys' Cheerios when you were talking about COVID and sickness as far as the weekend, but like my weekend was in Chicago to see Def Leppard, Poison, Motley Crue, and Joan
Wait,
Jett.
so they just came to Florida.
Did they?
Yeah, with Joan Jett and Def Leppard and Motley Crue. That's awesome.
I just watched that movie about Motley Crue last night on Netflix.
I heard it's great. I need to see it.
It was really interesting. And really at the end of it, when they showed the pictures of the band with the characters who played them in the movie, it was just kind of interesting. It was, I grew up in that era. I'm a big Motley Crue fan. So it was kind of interesting to watch that. But I had a gentleman on my show, Anthony Ferraro. He came on. He's a jiu-jitsu champion. He's in Elmhurst. He has a dojo in Elmhurst, Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, Elmhurst. Yeah.
So what was your favorite set, Jennifer?
Def Leppard.
I have this oversized Def Leppard shirt.
It was amazing. And we were row 17. And then like in order. So my brother, he likes to like go big or go home. And this has been planned for 2 years. And so like it's been postponed for 2 years. As a matter of fact, I originally wasn't able to go because it was going to fall during the school year and I knew I had to teach. So since it got postponed over and over, and then boom, it was going to be in the summer, and I was like, oh, sign us up. And so instead of driving there, because it's like 3 hours with traffic, it ended up being like 3.5. And so we had a party bus
for 3 hours.
Oh, Vicar, go home.
It was like 3.5.
No.
And so it picked us up at 12 and the concert started at 4, and then it was nice to like have our safe ride home for the next 4 hours. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so much partying. 3 hours there.
It was so many people.
4-hour concert probably.
It was
and then
lot,
a 4-hour ride home.
There was quite a few people sleeping on the way home.
Yeah. That sounds like a great time.
So let me ask you this. Do you have any of your old concert t-shirts from the 80s and 90s? Because those are worth big money now. My oldest son's big into vintage clothing and Nike shoes. He's been repairing Nike shoes for years. And people mail him shoes from all over the United States to fix. It's pretty crazy. But he's got into vintage and these old t-shirts. Like I had an old Kansas City Chiefs t-shirt I've had since the 80s. And it was the Tasmanian devil with the headdress on it. And I gave it. I said, hey, Junior, do you want this? Like, yeah, Dad, I'll take it. People keep trying to buy this t-shirt off him for like $300.
Yep.
I'm like, it's just an old t-shirt I had thrown in the closet. So anybody out there listening, if you go through your parents' stuff or whoever, and they got old concert t-shirts, some of those can be worth tens of thousands of dollars.
I mean, because like I said, I have a replica concert t-shirt of Def Leppard, and I got that for $80. And that's replica. So how much is like the real one, from a long time? Exactly.
Crazy. So that was my tip of the day.
I don't have anything.
Become a hoarder.
I know. I like with all the PCSs that I've gone through, I've like
I don't have
purged so much. Like every time I purge half my closet, but then like the husband always makes fun and says, you're purging to make room for new junk.
He's not wrong.
So I don't know if even I have like clothes that old. I probably do.
I had an old Kansas City Chiefs jacket from the 90s because I grew up in Kansas City, right? So and that jacket's worth I think $500 or something. It's just some old.
Is it a starter jacket?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
What? Yeah, those are expensive.
Yeah, it's starter jacket. I think it's from 1992, but it's just like brand new because I'm very hot natured. So even when it's cold, I'm the guy that wears flip flops and shorts in the wintertime.
Oh
so very rarely do I ever wear a coat. It's funny because when my wife was in Chicago, all the neighbors would sit out and they would, drink beer and the kids would play even in the wintertime for a couple hours. I'd be out there in shorts with them, be like 0 degrees, and I'd be out there in shorts and flip flops talking.
Oh my gosh. You're crazy.
My youngest one teases me all the time about going outside and shoveling snow barefooted or in flip flops.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I'm going to go around the board and just get some final thoughts from y'all. Kat, you got any final thoughts for us?
Other than I'm very happy to come back to talk with anybody anytime. And I have to push myself, like you said, to get to this point, but I need the motivation, and I need I guess this is a boost to confidence. And I think anybody that needs to hear, like, if I can do it, you can do it. You can come talk, you can come listen, you can ask for help. If I can do it, you can do it. And I think that needs to be said.
Perfect. Cliff?
It's funny, Kat, because you talk about, we talked about drinking and things. And I went to the doctor. This is a long time ago. And he was kind of an old school doctor. And he's like, well, how much do you drink a night? I was like, well, maybe 6 ounces of scotch, mix it with amaretto, make a Godfather, right? So maybe 6 ounces of scotch, 2 ounces of amaretto, and I'll have maybe one of those tonight, probably 2. And he's like, well, why don't you just cut it by 2 ounces? I'm like, oh, well, I guess I could do that. And then when I saw him, I don't know, 6 months later, he's like, hey, so what do you drink at night? I was like, oh, well, doc, I drink, 4 ounces of this and 2 ounces of that. And he's like, well, won't you just cut 2 ounces out of it?
Right.
And so next thing you know, I'm just drinking 4 ounces instead of 12 ounces. And then so I don't hardly even drink anymore now. But it was something to do over time. And I think sometimes people think that they need to stop something immediately. I mean, if it's detrimental to your health, I mean, that's different. Talk to your doctor, whatever. I'm just saying that you can make little bitty changes, little bitty steps that can help you with what you're going through or what you're doing. And if you're self-medicating with alcohol and other stuff, I'm not saying to stop drinking. I'm not saying that, because if you're a heavy alcoholic, that can kill you. What I'm saying is maybe drink 2 ounces less than what you did before. That's my tip for the day. Give all your 90s t-shirts from the concerts.
Jennifer, hit us with your website where we can get your book and your last thoughts.
I should write down that list so I remember. My website is www.thejenniferhobbs.com, which I love. JenniferHobbs.com was taken, and it ended up being like the Jennifer Hobbs wasn't. I was like, this is perfect.
I should have dressed up to come on the show now.
I know, right?
Or you can email me at jennifer@thejenniferhobbs.com and find me on some other platforms as author Jennifer Hobbs. But that was the one thing. I don't remember
where to get your book.
Yes, my book is on Amazon and online at Barnes and Nobles. Pretty much just Google Calmed Growth After Trauma.
Can they order it through your website?
You can, yeah, it'll take you straight there. Or, like if you want to be really cool and get my John Hancock, you can just send me an email or reach out to me on social media, and I will get you your own personalized copy.
There you go. Everybody reach out and get their own personalized copy, because it's
right.
better than just going out
Jennifer.
Exactly. And I totally recorded it on Audible myself. So
that's awesome.
If you absolutely just hate wonderful books and you don't want the pictures, because there are totally pictures in the hard copy, but it is on Audible. It is on Audible.
Do you have a copy of your book right there? Can you pick it up and show us what
I do, and I hope it works with the blur. Let me turn this blur off so you can.
There you go. You can see it.
You can.
If you hold it by your face.
Yeah, if you hold it by your face, we can see it. Yeah, nice.
And so what I got to tell you, my hair are my last thoughts, in addition to so much I wanted to piggyback on all of that, but I won't keep going. I mean, great advice though, Cliff, on the don't expect yourself to just stop. Like, I've talked to my doctor at the VA about this, and he's like, he's giving me so much advice on like, maybe you just put so many on a shelf and only allow yourself that much. And another thing that I started doing is making myself accountable by tracking my alcohol consumption on VetChange.org, I think. And so in addition to you being able to track your alcohol use, and it does give other options of other substances if you want to click on those and keep track of your use of them, but then it has videos to help you along your journey of trying to get this under control. But what I want to end with about this cover, these 5 boots hanging on the power line, this cover like means so much to me. I dedicated this book to my battle buddy, Jessica Covey. She died in the truck that my husband was hit by a roadside bomb on. She had died immediately, but she was the fifth person in my unit to give the ultimate sacrifice. And at the first 4 memorials on the base, they kept playing the same song, American Soldier by Toby Keith, which is a great song. But when you're going to your battle buddies memorials, like 4 times, 4 too many, 1 time, 1 too many, right? And so after the 4th time, when we walked away from that 4th memorial, Jessica Covey said, "You guys, if I die, don't you play that damn song at my funeral." She said, you guys better play something like "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster" and throw my boots over the power lines. And so that's why the boots
that's wonderful
on the power lines.
That's awesome. I love
all
that.
5 of them for all the battle buddies.
It's definitely meaningful. Thanks for sharing that, Jennifer. All right, my final thought. So we talked about how, Cliff, you said take things little by little. I said some things take a little time, right? So don't expect that change is going to happen right away. Don't expect that your passions are going to come to you like that, because through the years, you'll learn that things change, right? That's the only constant. Another thing I want to say is find your tribe. Get yourself out of that dark place, because if you're not going to reach out, people could only reach out to you so much.
That's right.
So it's up to you to manage your trauma and to get you out of that dark place.
That's right.
So it's hard. We talked to this. It's a hard thing to do, but once you get out of there and you find your people, it'll be worth it. So, all right, you guys, if you're listening, find us on VeteranTrashTalk.com. You'll find our store on there. You'll find our t-shirts on there, the t-shirt that Cliff is wearing. You'll find all our podcasts, Cliff's podcast, my podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're on all of that. Okay. Somewhere in there, there's a link tree with all of our stuff on there. I want to thank you guys again for joining us for this Throat Punch Monday, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.